we're back to Dante. And if you recall, we left off in the fourth canto with Dante the pilgrim being accompanied by Virgil down through the Inferno, and I think we have it here, up through the upper vestibules of hell in the realm of the lustful. So we've just gone through limbo in the realm of the indolent or the lazy, and now we're getting to the Inferno proper, and the sins being punished there are, if you group them, the sins of incontinence. And these are just, lack of self-control. And lust fits under those, so will greed and gluttony and wrath and so forth, as opposed to actual sins of violence where actions are taken, and as opposed to the sins of fraud. Now, these are all categories in accordance with Aristotelian understandings and not biblical ones, and Dante's quite open about that fact. But I mentioned to you, and I wanted to support what I said last time, that Dante was read by the medieval church as having, not Dante, Virgil was seen to some degree as having a supernatural warrant for his books. So I said a couple of classes ago when we looked at Virgil's Aeneid that the Aeneid was read by the church for thousands of years as a model for Latin grammar and good style and so forth. But there was an additional reason for that, and it was because Virgil appeared in some of his works, namely this one I'm going to look at very briefly here, in his fourth eclogue, was said to have something akin to a prophecy of Christ in his work. And this was the opinion of Augustine, for example. He thought that there was a prophecy of Christ even in Virgil's own work, although he acknowledged that Virgil himself didn't actually see what he was prophesying, but it's there. So I'm just going to read the passage here, and then I'm going to look at a couple passages from Isaiah and show you why some at any rate thought that this was the case. But this is the fourth eclogue, where Virgil writes, "Muses of Sicily, essay we now a somewhat loftier task. Not all men love coppice or lowy tamarisk. Sing we woods worthy of a consul, let them be. Now the last age by Cumae's Sibyl sung has come and gone, and the majestic roll of circling centuries begins anew. Justice returns old Saturn's reign, with a new breed of men sent down from heaven. Only do thou, at the boy's birth in whom the iron shall cease, the golden race arise. Befriend him, chaste Lucina, 'tis thine own Apollo reigns, and in thy consulate this glorious age, O Pollio, shall begin, and the months enter on their mighty march. Under thy guidance, whatso tracks remain of our old wickedness, once done away, shall receive the earth from never ceasing fear. He shall receive the life of gods. And see, heroes with gods commingling, and himself be seen of them, and with his Father's worth reign o'er a world at peace. For thee, O boy, first shall the earth, untilled, pour freely forth her childish gifts, the gadding ivy spray with foxglove and Egyptian bean flower mixed, and laughing-eyed acanthus. Of themselves untended will the she-goats then bring home their udders swollen with milk, while flocks afield shall of the monstrous lion have no fear. Thy very cradle shall put forth for thee caressing flowers. The serpent too shall die. Die shall the treacherous poison plant, and far the wide Assyrian spices spring. But soon as thou hast skill to read and of heroes' fame and of thy father's deeds, and inly learn what virtue is, the plain by slow degrees with waving corn crop shall to golden grow, from the wild briar shall hang the blushing grape, and stubborn oaks sweat honeydew. And we have the sense here of a golden age and a return to golden age. And remember, I said that in the pagan view of the cycles of time in history, life began in the golden age and it fell from that towards the silver and the bronze and an iron age. But this prophesies the coming, a return to the golden age, in which a young child shall lead them, and basically all reference to the death of the serpent and the enmity between creatures be set aside, and the earth bring forth its fruits without labor and so forth. So it's a reference to the golden age. Some have seen it as echoing Isaiah. So, for example, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder in his time. His name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it, to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. And then it goes on to talk about the bricks falling down and so forth, these things just happening. Even more importantly, behold my servant whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I've put my spirit upon him. He will bring justice forth to the nations. He will not cry aloud or lift up his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law. Other references in Isaiah to lion lying down with the lamb, etc. That's sort of a golden age of peace. So, as I say, whether we hold this view or not, Augustine and I think Lactantius, other of the patristic fathers, thought this was in Virgil a reference to the Messiah. And so based on that belief, Virgil took on a special status among the pagan poets. And Dante plainly adheres to this in some way. And we're going to see when we come to the Purgatorio, he will explicitly mention that another poet came to faith through reading Virgil, not through reading scriptures, but through reading Virgil and hearing something of the coming of the Messiah in his work. And I'll look at that when we come to Purgatorio in a couple of classes. But yes.
What did Augustine think of Dante's description of hell?
Oh, well, he hadn't seen it because Dante writes,
oh, right?
Yeah. Dante is giving us a Thomistic presentation of theology and so forth. So 12th century. So it's considerably after that. Very much of the medieval synthesis being presented in his thought there. Any other comments on that front? I just wanted to bring that to your attention before coming to the 5th canto. And with the 5th canto, the realm of the lustful. Now, what I want you to note, which we'll see here at the beginning, but we'll see ever more so as we descend into the Inferno, is as we go down into the Inferno, space starts to condense. It gets narrower and narrower. And as it not only gets narrower and narrower as we burrow deeper and deeper, and it goes down like a spiral, as it goes down, it not only gets narrower and narrower, it gets colder and colder, which is totally counterintuitive. If you think of Inferno as fire, you associate fire with heat. Dante is not doing that. He's thinking in terms of the physics of his day and thinking about water. When it is heated, it's like steam. It's moving around, and it's the molecules are agitated. Not that he has an idea of molecules, but he sees it moving around in like a whirlwind. And the souls in the fifth canto are doing exactly that. They're flying around in the air as if buffeted by their lusts. And as we descend down the Inferno, we will find that the sinners that he meets in those various cantos are no longer, not only are they not flying through the air, they are first of all on the ground in pools of water, but eventually encased in ice. And he will step on top of their heads and so forth, which is rather grisly. But what you see is the association in the Inferno with a landscape which is frozen in ice. And from Dante onwards, icy landscapes are in the literary imagination associated with hell. So you'll see in Western literature, very often icy, snowy blizzards and so forth, connoting a very evil place. So in the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the monster goes not only into the Arctic, but up the mountain. And again, it's a very cold and desolate place, which evokes Dante's Inferno. And if you haven't read Dante's Inferno, you wouldn't have thought that it was going to be cold, but it is. So ice has that connotation. It's not that he doesn't read scripture and doesn't understand that the description of hell is described as a fire and so forth. It's that he's using Aristotelian understandings of physics, which are the scientific opinion of his day, to describe different states here. So let me go on. Was anyone have a comment or question about that? If not, I'll move forward. Okay, so so Dante writing here, I descended from the first enclosure down to the second circle, that which girdles less space, but grief more great, that goads to weeping. There dreadful Minos stands. Now Minos we've already met in Virgil. He is the being that is in the underworld that judges the dead. And as he judges the dead, he sends them to where they belong in the underworld. Here, however, he's presented as a demon who wraps his tail around a sinner. Each time a sinner passes, Minos, who's presented as a demon, has a tail that wraps around the sinner the number of times he will, to reflect which circle in hell he'll go to. So he wraps it around 9 times. You go all the way down to the bottom. So Minos is a sort of a connoisseur of sin. Gnashing his teeth, examining the sins of those who enter, he judges and assigns as his tail twines. I mean that when the spirit born to evil appears before him, it confesses all, and he, the connoisseur of sin, can tell the depth in hell appropriate to it. As many times as Minos wraps his tail around himself, that marks the sinner's level. Always there is a crowd that stands before him. Each soul in turn advances toward that judgment. They speak in here, then they are cast below. Now, this is not questioning the what it says in Scripture, that Jesus is the judge. This is talking about, in just purely poetic, secular terms, the placement in hell, which is totally constructed, again, according to Aristotelian understandings of human sin. And Minos is acting in that role here, and he's plucked it right out from Virgil. But as soon as he sees Dante, who's not supposed to be there, he says, "Oh, you who reach this house of suffering, be careful how you enter. Whom you trust, the gate is wide, but do not be deceived." To which my guide replied, "But why protest? Do not attempt to block his fated path. Our passage has been willed above, where one can do what he has willed and ask no more." So in other words, God himself has vouchsafed that Dante should come down to see what lies in the underworld. From the vantage point of Minos, he doesn't want to let him go down into the underworld and is afraid of the consequences for him. But Virgil tells Minos, it's God who has ordained this voyage, so let him pass. So it's a bit like the golden bough, if you remember from Virgil's Aeneid. Now notes of desperation have begun to overtake my hearing. Now I come where mighty lamentation beats against me. I reach a place where every light is muted, which bellows like the sea beneath a tempest when it is battered by opposing winds. The hellish hurricane which never rests drives on the spirit with its violence, wheeling and pounding it harasses them. They say they're flying around in the air. So many famous portraits of this. Um, we'll see it. Is it going to give me this? This is from the famous paintings of Gustave Doré. So beings, you can see that there's how many thousands and millions flying in the air around him as he descends. And they are almost all lovers of some sort. And I learned that those who undergo this torment are damned because they sinned within the flesh, subjecting reason to the rule of lust. Note that it's a crime against reason. You're not thinking right. You're not ordering your love in accordance with him who is love. You're acting in accordance with people that are made in the image of God, and you're loving them, the creature, rather than the creator. So you're subjecting your reason to an inappropriate category. You're placing your lust for a body over and above God, and that's irrational in Dante's estimation. So subjecting reason to the rule of lust, and as in the cold season, starlings' wings bear them along in broad and crowded ranks, so does that blast bear on the guilty spirits. Or as cranes fly. And then he asks, that is Dante, to Virgil, Master, who are those who suffer punishment in this dark air? The first of those, about whose history you want to know, my master then told me, once ruled as empress over many nations. Cleopatra, I think. Her vice of lust became so customary that she made license licit in her laws. What was illegal, she made it legal to free her from the scandal she had caused. Oh, I'm wrong. It's not Cleopatra. It's Semiramis, of whom we read that she was Ninus's wife and his successor. She held the land the Sultan now commands. That other spirit killed herself for love. Who's that other spirit? Dido. So we find Dido down here. She betrayed the ashes of Sychaeus, and then the wanton Cleopatra follows next. And see Helen of Troy, began the whole Trojan War, for whose sake so many years of evil had to pass. See great Achilles, who finally met love in his last battle. See Paris, Tristan, and then he lists a whole variety of courtly lovers. And he pointed out 1,000 more shades who departed from her life because of love. And no sooner had I heard my teacher name the ancient ladies and the knights than pity seized me, and I was like a man astray. My first poet, I should willingly speak with those two who go together there and seem so lightly carried by the wind. And he to me, you'll see when they draw closer to us, and then you may appeal to them by that love which impels them. They will come. So if you speak to them in the name of their lust, they will answer to you, because that's what drives them. Their minds are so distorted, they won't answer to their name, but they will, if you appeal to their love, which is their idol, they will then come to you. So he does that. And left the ranks where Dido suffers, and then they speak to Dante. O living being, gracious and benign, who through the darkened air have come to visit our souls that stain the world with blood. If he, that is God, who rules the universe, were a friend to us, then we should pray to him to give you peace, for you have pitied our atrocious state. Whatever pleases you to hear and speak will please us too, to hear and speak with you. For now the wind is silent in this place. And then they go on to recount who they are and where they came from. So this is the story. Now they're going to refer to the Po. The Po is a river up in the northeast of Italy, near Venice, up in that area. I was born in the land that lies on the shore, to which the Po gathered with the waters that follow it descends to rest. Love that can quickly seize the gentle heart took hold of him because of the fair body taken from me. This is the woman speaking. How that was done still wounds me. Love that releases no beloved from loving took hold of me so strongly through his beauty that, as you see, it has not left me yet. Love led the two of us unto one death. Caina waits for him who took our life. These words were born across from them to us. Now, what's the story here? These two lovers are named Paolo and Francesca. And the story of Paolo and Francesca, which is represented in Western art, not at first in Dante, but thereafter in painting and in opera and so forth, and immortalized in, I think, The Kiss by Rodin. Have you ever seen Rodin, and or you know? This one. This is in the Louvre, I believe. You see it? This uh, depiction of The Kiss is Paolo and Francesca. Um, and it tells the tale of a true story of a woman by the name of Francesca da Rimini, whose husband was away for whatever reason. I don't know if it's business. His brother Paolo, he left behind with his wife, and they were reading the story of Lancelot and Guinevere, a courtly love story about a betrayal of a husband, King Arthur, by his best knight, his first knight, Lancelot, and his queen have an adulterous affair. So they're reading that story, and the two who've left behind are reading the story and then look at each other, and then the affair ensues. When the brother comes home, he kills them, enraged for this, and he is sent, in Dante's estimation, down to the bottom of hell, to Cain, where the betrayal of a beloved is sent. That's her recounting of this at any rate. But they are nonetheless being punished here for their lust. But note that Dante judges in accordance with the world's understanding. Their lust is less grave than their murder by their brother-in-law, because he's murdered a brother and he's murdered a wife, and therefore there's a betrayal, a deep betrayal on their part. Now, no, I think it can be flipped around very easily, but that's the way I say it. But anyway, when I'd listened to these injured souls, I bent my head and held it low until the poet, that is Virgil, asked of me, "What are you thinking?" And when I replied, my words began, "Alas, so many gentle thoughts, so how deep a longing that led them to the agonizing pass." Then I addressed my speech again to them. "Francesca, your afflictions move me to tears of sorrow and of pity. But tell me, with what and in what way did love allow you to recognize your still uncertain longings?" And she to me, "There is no greater sorrow than thinking back upon a happy time in misery, and this your teacher knows. Yet if you long so much to understand the first root of our love, then I shall tell my tale to you as one who weeps and speaks. One day, to pass the time away, we read of Lancelot, how love had overcome him. We were alone and we suspected nothing. And time again that reading led our eyes to meet and made our faces pale. And yet one point alone defeated us. When we had read how the desired smile was kissed by one who was so true a lover, this one, Paolo, who never shall be parted from me, while all his body trembled, kissed my mouth. A Galaho indeed that book, and he who wrote it to that day we read no more. A Galaho is a deceiver, a go-between, somebody who leads them to sin, and she's blaming the book for it's not her fault, it's not his fault, it's the book that led her into the act of sin. So she refers to the book in this sense, and the one who wrote it. Now, Dante, having read this, thinks about the fact that he too has been writing courtly love poetry, in which this sort of idealized relationship is there and yet leads people astray. And so you need to understand that with his response. And while one spirit said these words to me, the other wept, so that because of pity I fainted, as if I had met my death, and then I fell as a dead body falls. Is Dante guilty of lust? No. Dante is guilty of leading other people to lust. So he falls as one dead because he's complicit in their sin, and he recognizes this is part of his awareness as he goes down through the Inferno. Dante, the character, is undergoing an education about the true nature of sin, about his complicity in it in some ways, but not his guilt. Remember, he doesn't belong in hell. But nonetheless, there are aspects of his life that have led him off the straight and narrow path and mean that he can't go on. So that's what we have here in Canto 5, the famous Canto 5, and the depiction of Paolo and Francesca. Any comments or questions? You pity them. But he's it's his household, and he has murdered his guests, which even though it's his brother, and he's murdered his wife, and so there's a betrayal. I don't disagree with you, and in terms of, boy, this seems awfully harsh on whoever the husband is here. I don't even recall his name, but Dante assigns him there for reasons. I mean, I think it could easily be flipped the other way around. And this is one thing you'll notice about Dante's the placement of people in the Inferno. I think they could be in multiple places. Well, that's a great comment. What does it say about how seriously adultery is seen in the eyes of the world of Dante's day? And the answer is they're diminishing the severity of adultery. And it is not much different in today's day. That's right. And why? Because we agree with Dante's world. From the world's perspective, it doesn't seem that bad. Right? And that's all he's saying. It's from the world's perspective, the Inferno reflects how we mortals regard the sins that are committed there, how seriously we see them. Not how serious they are, but how we perceive them to be. And he uses Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics to do that, which we more or less agree with, even if we haven't read Aristotle. That's my comment. I'll skip over that. I want to jump ahead. So that's the 5th canto. I want to briefly look at Canto 11, if I can, just to make a brief comment. And the brief comment is to describe the way in which the sins are depicted. I've already said this, but the punishment and how the suffering happens. There is a doctrine that Dante uses here. So all the depictions, there's different sins, different degrees, and also different punishments. And the punishments he calls contrapasso, suffering in accordance with the sin committed. And it's equivalent. So the gluttonous are buried in masses of rotten fruit. They couldn't stop eating. They were too greedy, and they wanted too much food. They wouldn't stop eating, and so they're buried in masses of rotten fruit eternally, which is disgusting. They don't want to eat the food. It's awful, but it's filling their mouths, etc. The misers, those are like Ebenezer Scrooge and don't want to spend money. They're hanging on them, or people who spend freely and don't even think about the consequences and impoverish themselves. So those whose view of money is disordered in some ways. The misers and the free spenders are rolling circular weights in opposite directions, and then the weights crash together. They don't get anywhere. So weights are used in the ancient world for measuring the value of something. They don't understand the value of money. There's no justice in the way they spend. So some just spend extravagantly. They waste every last penny that they have, and others hold on to all their money and won't spend it on anything. They don't understand or appreciate and understand the use of money. They are themselves in suffering in accordance with the sin they commit. Heretics who deny immortality are buried alive in a tomb of fire. So you get various punishments in the Inferno in accordance with the sin and how Dante perceives it to operate. In Canto 13, those who commit suicide are punished. What's the crime of suicide? Well, you've taken the life of somebody who bears the image of God. Who is that? You. But it's not your life. It was given to you. So you will be punished for this. The suicides are presented in a bleeding tree. The suicides themselves turn into trees that are bleeding eternally. Anyway, so the character of Dante, when he sees these, writes upon them from the perspective of Dante the poet. And as the Dante descends down into the Inferno, we see a transformation of Dante so that he undergoes a greater understanding of the justice of the punishments that are undergone, and he becomes less and less sympathetic to the sinners as he goes down. Even though the sins are worse, or maybe because they're worse, he becomes less and less sympathetic and more hardened to the sinners that he encounters. So in the end, he's like grabbing them by the hair and ripping them up and speaking, brutally to them and so forth. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I read this wrong, but I think at one point he's asking for a man's name, and he says, "If you give me your name, I'll remove like the ice from your eyes." And then he doesn't do that.
Exactly.
That was kind of brutal.
It's a little bit brutal, yeah. If you do this, I'll do this, and then he does it, and then you're gonna suffer, you horrible, yeah. So, yeah, yeah, it's like a Hollywood movie there. If you do this, I'll put you out of your misery, and then I'm gonna let you suffer a little bit more and stamp on your head to boot or something like that, right? It's like eesh, yeah. And so it's hard to be sympathetic with Dante, the character, at that point in the poem. But what it's reflecting is actually, although from a human level it seems, boy, you're becoming inhumane, he's becoming more aware of how sinful sin is, and so he's in a sense progressing as a character, no longer sympathetic towards sin. Where do I want to depict you here? I've got all sorts of stuff. Does anyone have any particular canto they wanted me to exposit? If not, I'm going to come towards the end of them. No? Let me come towards the ones further down. How about 33? In 33, we have people eating each other, basically taking bites out of the back of the heads of the sinner in front of them, encased in ice. It's pretty grisly stuff. This is from Canto 32, we come to the river Cocytus, a lake of ice by this point. Not that. All the way down here. Into the realm of treachery and the different types of traitors. Cain, of course, who slew his brother Abel, is a traitor to kin. Antenor is a traitor to countrymen. Ptolemy, a traitor to his nation. Judeca to his lord. Each degree of treachery is worse than the previous before it. And so you go a little bit further down. And at the center of hell, we get Satan himself depicted, encased in ice as well. So in Canto 32, the river Caucasus, a lake of ice, which is called the base of all the universe, and this is where all human feeling and sympathy has been utterly eliminated. He's just brutal now, Dante. So, as I say, Cana is those who are traitors to their family, Antenora, traitors to their country, Ptolemy, traitors to their host, and Judeca, traitors to their lords, just like Judas Iscariot. So this is the ninth circle of the Inferno, which is further subdivided into bulges. Let's see if I've got where is this? I will just go down to 34 because it is, there we go. I'll spend. Keep your eyes ahead, my master said, to see if you can spy him. The one at the center or at the depth, in all the depths of hell. Let's see if I can. I'm going to use a different depiction of the Inferno here. Dante Inferno images. This one's not bad, actually. It's not very good, though. That's better. So you can see as we go down, it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And at the bottom of that, and you can't see that there, so what shall I do? Also not. Also not. It's right here. It gets narrower. And oh, let me say something about this as well. So this is all three of the cantos being depicted on this image behind me. I'll shrink it down a bit so you can see the whole thing. What happens here, this is Jerusalem at the bottom, and you go down to the middle of the earth and then up the other side. What happens is that Satan falls from heaven, falls as lightning, and as he falls, he hits the earth. When he hits the earth, so he goes down through the spheres, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, all the way down, hits the earth, and when he hits the earth flips so that Satan is as far away from God as he can be. So everything gets inverted, and the earth that is pushed down into the earth by his fall, leading him to be buried in the bowels of the earth, is displaced on the other side to create the Mount Purgatory. If that makes any sense. Like if you drop an enormous meteorite, it hits the earth is pushed down, and all that land that's pushed down pops up on the other side. And at the same time, it flips around because he is seen as far from God as he can possibly be. Now, I say that this is in Jerusalem. This is the bizarre thing here. Just trying to give you a pictorial image. You know what? I'll try this a different way. Has anyone been to Jerusalem? Seen the Dome of the Rock? This place? You ever seen this? Yeah, that's terrible. It's too small. I want a big. This one. In Jerusalem, have you seen it before? Famous Dome of the Rock. You know what's inside of this? Have you been? Has anyone been there? Not one of you. Inside of it, it's called the Dome of the Rock, is a rock. Yep. So here is the Dome of the Rock. So this thing on the outside is like this. On the inside is this rock. And this rock, legend holds, is a stopper on the mouth of hell. It's also the same rock upon which Abraham took his son Isaac to sacrifice him. In other words, it's Mount Moriah. Now, we're talking about a bit of mythology here, but the reason I'm making the connection, and I don't know if I'm correct in this. I've speculated on this over the years, and I'm not sure that I'm actually correct. But um, the reason why I'm saying that is, where is this image? Here. This is Jerusalem here, on the mouth of hell. It's Jerusalem, the rock that, stop it. And he goes from Jerusalem down into the bowels of the earth and then comes up on the other side. The other side is the other side of the earth, Mount Purgatory. So the sins that are pushed down into the earth that take you away from God are healed when one goes up the mountain on the other side and gets closer and closer towards God. And as your sins are burnt off you and you come closer and closer as you ascend Mount Purgatory. Now, there is no actual physical place like this, but in the imagination of the medieval mind, I think this actually holds quite strongly. Maybe I'll go back to, but this place actually exists, the Dome of the Rock, and there is a strong association in that with the story of, no, Abraham and Isaac, with that very place. So it's and hell beneath it. It's also, when David takes a census of Israel, there's a rock on which the curse stops. What's the name of the rock? I can't remember now. But this is also reputed to be that rock. I can't remember the name of the rock. I should know. I once knew. At any rate, we're now at the bottom of that counter where the hell has shrunk to a very, very tight atmosphere, and it's extraordinarily cold. And there's no movement. The sinners that he finds are encased in ice, and it's a brutal landscape, and Dante himself is showing no mercy towards them. And so he describes, just as when night falls on our hemisphere, or when a heavy fog is blowing thick, a windmill seems to wheel when seen far off, so then I seem to see that sort of structure, like a windmill. And next, because the wind was strong, I shrank behind my guide. There was no shelter. And now, with fear, I set it down in meter. I was there. All the shades were fully covered, but visible as wisps of straw in glass. So the sinners are actually under the ice, buried beneath the ice. Some lie flat, others stand erect, one on his head, the one upon his soles. Some bend face to feet, just like a bow. But after we'd made our way ahead, my master felt he now should have me see that creature who was once a handsome presence. He stepped aside and made me stop and said, "Look, here is Dis." Now, Dis is, in Virgil's depiction, Pluto, god of the underworld. But here, it's not Pluto. It's Satan, Lucifer. So there's a conflation of the pagan symbol with the Christian here. This is Dis, and this the place where you will have to arm yourself with fortitude. O reader, says Dante, do not ask me how I grew faint and frozen then. I cannot write it. All words would fall far short of what it was. I did not die, and I was not alive. Think for yourself, if you have any wit, what I became, deprived of life and death. The emperor of that despondent kingdom so towered from the ice up from the mid-chest that I match better with a giant's breadth than giants match the measure of his arms. Now you can gauge the size of all of him if it is in proportion to such parts. Let me see if I can find this. Dante, Inferno, Canto 34. Let's see what Dore does with this. That's as good as any. No. There, that's better. There. from the waist up, a figure, Lucifer, with wings that flap like a bat's, he's going to say. And the air from the flapping wings that echoes off the ice drives the icy gusts upwards, which is why there's wind up there. But he's in the presence of this, walking up across a glassy lake, frozen. And if he once was handsome as he now is ugly, he was once Lucifer, the bearer of light. And despite that, raised his brows against his maker, one can understand how every sorrow has its source in him. I marveled when I saw that. On his head, he had 3 faces, one in front, blood red, and then another 2 that just above the midpoint of each shoulder join the first. So he's got 3 faces. And at the crown, all 3 were reattached. The right looked somewhat yellow, somewhat white. The left, in its appearance, are like those who come from where the Nile descending flows, a sort of a brown. Beneath each face of his, 2 wings spread out, as broad as suited so immense a bird. I've never seen a ship with sails so wide. They had no feathers, but were fashioned like a bat's, and he was agitating them, so that 3 winds made their way out from him, and all Cocytus froze before those winds. He wept out of 6 eyes, and down 3 chins. Tears gushed together with a bloody froth. Within each mouth, he used it like a grinder. He's grinding his teeth. With gnashing teeth, he tore to bits a sinner, so that he brought much pain to 3 at once. The forward sinner found that biting nothing would match it against the clawing, for at times his back was stripped completely of its hide. The one at the front has, in addition, he's being torn apart by claws. That one who has to suffer the most is Judas Iscariot. His body's inside of his mouth, and the legs are sticking out. Yes. He is weeping. Pain. He himself is suffering and inflicting suffering. He's weeping in pain and anguish. He's being punished. He's at the bottom of the Inferno. He suffers the most of all. The second most will be Judas Iscariot, who's sticking out of his mouth. Yes.
I just noticed that it seems like the punishments at the top are worse than the bottom. At least for the like those that are just frozen. I feel like that's not as bad as being like burnt alive.
Well, they're not just frozen. So in 32, people who have eaten other people are themselves having their heads being eaten from behind eternally, and it regenerates, and then it keeps on happening. So it's not better than flying around in the air, sort of hopelessly. You're having your head chewed out from behind forever. I think that's worse. Huh? No, you don't really want to suffer any of them. And here he's being chewed up by Satan, but not chewed to the point there's nothing left. It regenerates, and then it just keeps on happening eternally. And then the skin on his back is being flayed off of him by the claws. And that soul up there is Judas Iscariot. His head inside, he jerks his legs without. And the others, their heads beneath. The one who hangs from that black snout is Brutus. Who's Brutus? Brutus is the one who betrayed Julius Caesar. And you're thinking, hold on a second here. Why is he being considered even comparable to Judas Iscariot? It's a strange thing to do, I would have thought. And likewise, the other one is Cassius, another one of the betrayers of Julius Caesar. So we've got 3 people being punished, the worst suffering of all human beings who've ever lived, and 2 of them are ones who killed Julius Caesar. Well, who's Julius Caesar in the eyes of history? And why is he significant? Well, he is that, but he's also think of in terms of Virgil, he is the one who brings about Augustus to the throne and therefore to be the emperor. And the Roman Empire is now is the predecessor to the Holy Roman Empire. And so if you oppose the Roman Empire, you oppose the Holy Roman Empire. It's a strange conflation of politics prior to Christ with um, with somebody who slew Christ or betrayed him at any rate over to death. It's making politics against the Roman Empire to be almost equally grave as betraying the Lord of life. I think it's an extraordinary um, placement. It reflects the Roman view of, or the Roman Catholic view of the importance of the Holy Roman Empire.
Does Dante ever use the symbolism or in his
No, no, no. The serpent eating its tail. No, not that I know of. It's a very strange placement. And it only makes sense in the light of what comes later, which is that the Roman Empire becomes Christianized. And at that point, you could argue, although I know people argue against this as well, that the Holy Roman Empire is not a representative of Christ's reign on earth, but in some ways uh, a worldly kingdom and not really the kingdom of God. But that's not how Dante sees it. He sees the Holy Roman Empire as the way in which God exercises his reign on earth. And therefore, because of that, the Roman Empire, which precedes it, has also that restraining power. And therefore, those that sought to kill the emperor are guilty of the most heinous crime imaginable after murdering or betraying to death Christ himself. No Protestant could ever have presented this. Wouldn't even have entered the imagination. But it's there. Yes.
say that is like idolatry
Idolatry, I don't even know if that's the right word here. It's a strange understanding of the Holy Roman Empire, but it's not the Holy Roman Empire. Remember, these two figures of Cassius and Brutus, they are betraying the would-be emperor Julius Caesar before Christ even comes. So why are they being given such significance? It's baffling from a Christian point of view, but from a world point of view, I said that that's how he explains it. From the Aristotelian framework, he's betraying the ruler of the largest imperial power in the world, and therefore he's doing something monstrously evil. I thought we don't tend to see things that way. In the English tradition, Brutus is seen as a freedom fighter. He kills the tyrant. That's how he's presented in English literature. He's a defender against tyranny.
yeah, but he betrays a friend in the process.
Correct. Not, but if it were only a friend, he's betraying his master.
Yeah.
Julius Caesar. It's not just his friend. It's the ruler of the day. Anyway, it's an intensely political statement and a surprising one, is all I'm saying. I think you're all surprised. I've always been puzzled by it. This is not the standard Roman Catholic view of our day, but it's the view that Dante presents as the medieval Thomistic view. I don't even think you will find contemporaries of his agreeing with him on this necessarily. But that's how he depicts it. I would just like to see a little bit more Christianity in the portrait. Sure, you've got Judas Iscariot there. Okay, well, that makes sense. But Brutus and Cassius alongside them, like, not as bad, but just a little bit better? No, that doesn't make any sense to me. At any rate, so here Virgil says something, and this is really interesting. Remember I said to you this, the whole narrative transpires over the course of 3 days. Begins on Good Friday, then goes into Easter Saturday, and then up on on to Sunday, Easter Sunday. It's not going to work. It's this. No, that's also not it. This. So we passed from the beginning, the dark valley, all the way down here into the center of the earth. And now it is about time for sunrise. And so they need to get moving because they've got 3 days to get from here all the way up here. And they're stuck here. So Virgil urges him on. Night has come again. It's time for us to leave. We've seen everything. Just as he asked, I clasped him round the neck, and he watched for the chance of time and place. And when the wings were opened wide enough, remember the wings are going like this from Lucifer and then flapping, and then they come back down. So while they're out, he's grabbing the sides of Satan, which are presented as shaggy. And he's grabbing him around his neck like he's on his back, like my son when he wants a piggyback. He grabs me around the throat, and he's, I'm holding him that. He's like, can you not grab me around the throat? But he's clasping him around the neck, and Virgil's now going to lead him where he needs to go. Well, where does he need to go? Well, it seems to be going down, because remember, he's going down towards the center. So he's clasping and yet going downwards, and then suddenly he's going to be flipped around going the other way. Where is this? So you've already seen here. We have a figure that's buried waist deep in ice. He's going to get behind him and start climbing downwards till he gets to the point where the buttocks are right by the ice, like there's a little gap there. Satan is like this 3-headed one. Oh, this is terrible. Awful. Oh, he should be mean. And he's biting things, and he's got these big batty wings going out over here and over here. And he's buried down to the point of the ice, and he gets up behind him, and he's crawling down his shaggy back. As it says, he took hold fast upon the shaggy flanks and then descended down from tuft to tuft between the tangled hair and icy crust. When we'd reached the point at which the thigh revolves, so right your hip joint at the swelling of the hip, my guide with heavy strain and rugged work reversed his head to where his legs had been. So he suddenly does like a jackknife and goes back in the other direction. So you're going to think and grappled on the hair as one who climbs. I thought we were going back to hell. Hold tight, my master said. He panted like a man exhausted. It is by such stairs that we must take our leave of so much evil. Then he slipped through a crevice in a rock and placed me on the edge of it to sit. That done, he climbed toward me with steady steps. I raised my eyes, believing I should see the half of Lucifer I had left. He thinks he's going to see this. Instead, he sees legs. Isn't that what a great artist I am? That's what he sees. He sees legs sticking up out of the ice. He's come out on the other side. He doesn't realize that he's done that, but now he's up on the other side. He sees feet up in the air. I raised my eyes, believing I should see the half of Lucifer that I had left. Instead, I saw him with his legs turned up. And if I then become perplexed, do let the ignorant be judges, those who cannot understand what point I had just crossed. What point had he just crossed? He went between up Satan's, at the bottom of hell is Satan's, yes, yes, yeah, at the bottom of hell is Satan's butt, put it mildly. And that's where he's passed, and now he's popped up on the other side. So the worst, darkest, yeah, never mind. Now I could do a meme out of this and all that. And anyway,
Now I know why it's called the divine comedy.
yeah. Get up, my master said. Be on your feet. The way is long. The path is difficult. The sun's already back to middle tierce. It's in the middle third. And it was no palace hall, the place in which we found ourselves, but with its rough hewn floor and scanty light, a dungeon built by nature. Before I free myself from this abyss, master, I said when I had stood up straight, tell me enough to see I don't mistake. Where's the ice? And how is he so placed head downward? Tell me, too, how has the sun in so few hours gone from night to morning? Well, he's come up on the other side. He's gone from the north hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. He's immediately gone to the other side of the world, just like I said, not there, here. He's gone. This is the northern hemisphere where Jerusalem is, and now he's on the southern hemisphere, wherever that is exactly. And he to me, you still believe you are north of the center, where I grasped the hair of the damned worm who pierces through the world. And you were there as long as I descended. But when I turned, that's when you passed the point to which from every part all weights are drawn. And now you stand beneath the hemisphere opposing that which cloaks the great dry lands, and underneath whose zenith died the man whose birth and life were sinless in this world. So Christ was crucified in outside Jerusalem. And we're on the other side of the globe now. Your feet are placed upon a little sphere that forms the other face of the Judeca. Here it is morning when it's evening there. And he whose hair has served us as a ladder is still fixed even as he was before. This was the side on which he fell from heaven. He fell from heaven. Bang. Remember, it fell, hits. Except he hit this side and then it flipped around. Fell from heaven. For fear of him, the land that once loomed here made of the sea a veil and rose into our hemisphere. And that land which appears upon this side, perhaps to flee from him, that is Satan, here left this hollow space and hurried upward. There is a place below, the limit of that cave, its farthest point from Beelzebub, a place one cannot see. It is discovered by ear. There is a sounding stream that flows along the hollow of a rock eroded by winding waters, and the slope is easy. My guide and I came on that hidden road to make our way back into the bright world with no care for any rest. We climbed, he first, I following, until I saw through a round opening some of those things of beauty heaven bears. It was from there that we emerged to see once more the stars. Last word of the Inferno. Last word of the Purgatorio, last word of the Paradiso, the stars. All three canticles conclude with the very same word, the stars. But now he's on the other side. He is at the base of Mount Purgatory. Next time, I'm going to take you up the terraces of Purgatory, of which there are seven terraces that represent the seven deadly sins, with P's written on his head in with a fiery tip, P for peccato, sin. And as he rises up Mount Purgatory, the P will vanish from his head as he's purged. The sin is purged from as he gets closer to God, and then he's taken up from there, from the earthly paradise up to the heaven of heavens. But I conclude with that here. Any questions about the Purgatory or the Inferno? For now. Spent a fair bit of time on Canto 34. It's hard to describe all the other ones, but yes. Everyone knows the Earth is round. It's long been known that the Earth is round. Mathematics will show it, astronomy will show it. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure where the idea began that anyone thought that the Earth was flat. I really don't know. Yes. Satan. Hades is another word for Pluto. Same figure there. Hades is the place, but it's also the person that's there. Sometimes you get them presented in both. Satan is also Lucifer. Lucifer means the one who bears the light. For luce is light, and pharaoh to carry. The light bearer, the brightest of all of the angels, so he says. But one of the archangels at any rate. And thereafter he becomes named as Satan, the adversary, after he betrays God and is sent down from, or cast down from heaven, as it's depicted in Revelation 13. Who? Satan and Hades. No, they're the same. Yes. Is the word Hades even used in the New Testament? Greek god of the underworld. The underworld realm itself, or the popular roguelike video game, never mind that. But Hades is the god of the underworld, or a reference to the underworld itself. So it's not a biblical word. Are you sure? I don't remember, but Hades, Greek New Testament term for the realm of the dead, the equivalent of Sheol. Okay. In the Old Testament, there's no reference to hell. It's Sheol, the realm of the dead, where the dead go. In New Testament, it gets clarified and referred more explicitly to hell, and not just a place of the dead, but a place of justice and torment and so forth. Yeah. So it's used once, but it's not used of a person, as far as I know. That's Revelation 6. Okay. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. Well, you're assuming that's a personification. I'm not sure that is the case. Right. Right. And hell is a Norse word after the goddess Hela. So, I mean, this is the challenge with all of these things, that we're using Anglo-Saxon words and Hebraic words and Greek words and describing. Here it's a realm, though, rather than a person. Hades is not a person. Hades comes along with death. Death, as in hell, comes behind, or Hades comes behind death. You die and then you go to Hades. So I don't think it's a reference to a person. Okay, but it sounds like it, because it sounds like, he's following close behind him, so it sounds like a person or a personification, and I don't think that's the case here. Okay, it's a realm. Okay, any other questions? I admit that this stuff is intriguing and also a little bit complicated. No, no, I will tell you about the exam when the time comes. I don't want you to worry about the exams. Don't worry about the exams. The exam will worry about